Oh, hello there. I see that you've made it back to video number 3 of our 3-part series of the top 15 running books of all time. If you missed videos 1 and 2, you can find them here and here. But this is the one that you've been waiting for, the top 5 running books of all time. Buckle up, Buttercup, and make sure that you pay attention because these will change your life. Let's go! We've only got 5 left here, and these are the top 5, so lock in and pay attention. We've got The Perfect Mile, which is the story of Roger Bannister's pursuit of the first sub-4 minute mile. Now, you've probably heard this before. People thought we couldn't run sub-4, and then once we did it, 50 people did it. Yeah, true, but he was the first one to do it. But what you might not know is that there were 3 men in the world who were all essentially capable of getting under 4, and it wasn't just a race to see who could do it, it was a race to see who could do it first. They had to find the right race, they had to find the right weather, they had to find the right timing. And this is a story of those 3 men and how they pursue and race each other to try to be the first. And then The Perfect Mile is not even about the sub-4 minute mile. The Perfect Mile refers to what happened after that. Because, here's a little spoiler for you. If you don't want a spoiler, just earmuffs for a couple seconds. Roger Bannister ran the first sub-4 minute mile, but then John Landy of Australia ran a 3:58, and he beat the world record just like weeks afterward. So now, who's better? I don't know, but the 2 of them, they met in Vancouver to show down with each other. The only 2 men to ever break 4. They both just did it. Who's going to win? Now, you don't know the answer to that probably, but this book is about the perfect mile between those 2 men. It is stunningly well written. It is inspiring. You get to hear about his training. Now, he was also a medical student, and he didn't have that much time for training. So if you think you don't have time to put into high-level training, all the excuses go away when you read this book. Now we're getting down to the wire, to just the very best of the best. This one here, it's a biography about Emil Zatopek. And it's called Today We Die a Little Bit. Or Today We Die a Little. There are a number of biographies that you can read on Emil Zatopek. This one takes the cake. It's so good. It's not a short read. You can see it's kind of a big book, but I read this a few years ago when I was in the Caribbean for my birthday, and I just devoured it. The history that you get about elite running in the 40s and the 50s and where the world was going and what we thought we were capable of is really amazing. Now, Emil Zatopek was running and training in Czechoslovakia during a time of war, and he was really under the thumb of the government, and he was not able to train. He was not a professional runner who had the luxury of training at his will. No, he was confined to his barracks. He was sometimes not able to leave, and he'd have to literally run in place with his wife on his back. He was in Czechoslovakia, and the winters were so extreme, he would put on snow boots up to his thigh, and he would go run in the snow. This guy had every disadvantage possible. He had the fear of death under him. He had relationship troubles that would boggle your mind. And it was in a time in the world where there was murder, and there was strife, and there was world war. And this guy prevailed and set world records after world records in multiple distances. He was undefeated for so long. He arguably is the greatest distance runner of all time. You're going to learn a lot about training, some extreme mindset, and a lot of history. Mwah! Read this book. Okay, the next book is one that I read on audiobook, so you can see it here. It's called Ultra Marathon Man. Now, this is one of my top 3 recommendations for you. We're coming down to just the top 3 here. You have to read this book. You have to read this book. It's about a guy, Dean Karnazes, who is an ultra runner. But his story essentially says that he was a business executive, and he had a lot of money and a lot of success. And he was out drunk with his friends on his 30th birthday. And he decided that no more of this bullshit where he's putting on weight and he doesn't feel fulfilled. So he was drunk at the bar, and he went outside and he stripped down to his underwear and he ran. He said, for my 30th birthday, I'm running 30 miles. And he ran through the night. He ran 30 miles. He trashed his body. It was very difficult, but then he was hooked, and he became a very high level ultra runner he went on to run the Western States, Badwater, the Spartathlon, and he's still writing to this day. He has many books. I've read all of his books, and they're all pretty good, but Ultra Marathon Man will inspire you. For sure. It is a true story. It's not about how to structure your training, but he's an excellent writer, and he tells these amazing stories about crazy things that happen where he's like running down the road at 2 o'clock in the morning and he's having a pizza delivered to him, and they're like, where should we deliver it? And he says, out on the highway at this intersection. And they come out and they bring him a whole pizza and a cheesecake, and he says, don't cut the pizza, just roll it up into a giant burrito. And this guy comes out with like a gallon of coffee, a cheesecake, and a pizza. Dean takes them and he runs down the road and he just eats an entire extra large pizza while holding a cheesecake. Then he eats the whole cheesecake and he just keeps on running through the night, and he runs all the way to the ocean. And he does things like this again and again. It really shows us what limitations we think we have. It's outstanding. You got to read this book. Now, we are down to the greatest running book of all time, but I'm a little bit biased here, and that is Run Elite, Train and Think Like the Greatest Runners of All Time. Now, this is my book, so like I say, I'm a little bit biased, and so I'm going to give you a bonus after this as well, because I don't want to inflate my ego too much. But this book is the best of the best. It's the cream of the crop. Why? Because it's going to give you everything that you need. This book is structured into 3 sections. Now, the first section, it's about that long, is on mindset. And this goes so much further than just talking about push hard and have your strong reason why you're going to run. No. Because I think most runners believe that when they're on the starting line of their race, that they're going to give it hell and they're going to be able to push really hard. But it's about who you become in the process of your training and the goals that you go for, really going for those big goals. And it tells you the stories about Eliud Kipchoge, Billy Mills, some of the best runners of all time who have taken leaps and bounds of chunks of time off of world records, and they did it like that. They didn't do 6 months of training. They did it from one race to the next, and they became world champions, Olympic gold medalists, and it tells you how to do that. Then most of the book, about this much here, is on how to structure your training. Now, the other books that we talked about, Jack Daniels' Running Formula, Pete Fitzinger's Advanced Marathoning, Brad Hudson's Run Faster from the 5K to the Marathon, and many others, we take all of those methodologies, including Coach E. Gloy's methodology for Bob Schul. We take them all and we put them in a nice pot and we extract the principles that you can implement in order to guarantee a peak in your performance. It's pretty awesome. And then the final section, which is about that big there, is on modern and elite running hacks that the US military is using, that Stanford and Harvard did a bunch of research that they're using for elite performance, that the NBA and NFL teams are using to maximize performance and endurance. And you get to learn about all of those here. It's Run Elite, Train and Think Like the Greatest Runners of All Time. You can get it on Amazon. Just go read the reviews. Don't take my word for it. We got about 200 5-star reviews on there, and for good reason. Just read what other people are saying. You'll see. This book is amazing. It's the best book of all time, but I'm a little bit biased. So even though that is my belief, I'm going to give you a final book here that is not my book, so that I don't have to just plug my book inadvertently. It is the best, but hey, because I'm the author, maybe I'm a little bit biased. So one of the best books of all time, and in fact, the best-selling book currently in the running world, is Born to Run by McDougall. Now, I've met this guy. He came to my town for his 3rd book. He did a book tour. But this book, it's actually in 3 sections because I read this when I was on the Colorado Trail. I thru-hiked the Colorado Trail in 2011, and you don't want to carry a lot of weight with you, so I ripped out a third of the book and carried that. When I got into the next town, I mailed this back to myself and I took the middle part of the book and then the 3rd part. And it was really incredible because a lot of this takes place on the Colorado Trail, and I didn't know that. But this book is one of the best of all time for a number of reasons. It is a great blend of breaking your beliefs about what is possible. This really tells the story of a number of really top ultra runners, how they train, how they think, but it goes so much deeper. He takes you to the Copper Canyons in Mexico, where there's a tribe of runners you may have heard of called the Tarahumara. Now, these runners, these tribesmen, they run, and they run hundreds and hundreds of miles, men, women, and children. And they're not injured, and they love it, and they're great ultra runners as part of their lifestyle, but they don't race. So he went and he found them and he talked with them, and he actually brought some of them to Colorado to run a 100-mile race. And I won't tell you what happened, but it's a pretty incredible story. This is also one of the books that got the world really into barefoot running. There's a character named Barefoot Ted, and you get to learn about running barefoot and mechanics and ultra training. and training for shorter distances as well. And then a couple of nutrition things. You've probably heard of chia seeds. I never heard of chia seeds until I read this book, and now chia seeds are everywhere. This book is probably single-handedly responsible for, I don't know, 50%, I don't know, I'm making that up, but maybe like 50% of chia seed sales nationwide. It's responsible for the barefoot movement. It's responsible for a lot because it's very good. It's well written, it's inspiring, there's entertaining stories, it's gripping, it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and you learn a lot about training, about mindset, and about the running world. Wow, you made it to video 3, and this has been the conclusion of the top 5 running books that exist. Now, if you really want to accelerate your performance, your motivation, and learn the history of how we got to where we are in the science and in the passion of distance running at the elite level, make sure that you watch video number 1 and video number 2 here. I hope that you have enjoyed. Now, subscribe because we've got a couple of videos coming up, the top running documentaries and the top running movies. You're gonna love this. There's a lot of information in these that you can't find elsewhere. So make sure that you're subscribed, make sure you like this video if you got something from it, and I'll see you on the coming series. Thank you. This has been Andrew Snow with Run Elite. Goodbye.